Welcome, everyone. My name is Barb Hedrick. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and we are happy to put on this candidate forum tonight for the Cass County Commission. Is this Zone 1? District 3, thank you. We have 3 candidates here tonight. We are doing this a bit differently, sort of pandemic conditions. And then we only have in the room our 3 candidates, myself, there is a timer, a journalist, and the City of Fargo's kind videographer to put this all online for us. Right now and later on, will be on the public access channels on Sparklight and Midco, and on Facebook pages with the League of Women Voters of the Red River Valley. We'd like to thank all the candidates for their participation tonight and in the future forums as throughout. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major policy issues, and influences through public policy through education and advocacy. And our candidate forums are some of our more popular efforts to do this, and we are happy to be able to do this again for the June 9th election with the Cass County Commission. The 3 candidates will each be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and there is a clock on the wall for them to watch, and then you will hear a small bing when that ends. And if you try to filibuster too much, I will say just thank you and move on to the next person. Then we have some questions that have been submitted from the public that through our Facebook page and elsewhere that I will be asking you. That none of the candidates have seen these questions ahead of time, I hope, because that's the way we're trying to do it. And for each question, we will have 1-minute responses, and each candidate will get a chance to respond. And then when we either run out of questions or run out of time, we will do 1 to 2 minute closing. We'll see how much time we have to do that. So we will start with Al Carlson. So will you give your 2-minute statement, please?
Yes, well, thank you.
Make sure you get the
green button to get it to work.
It should give a little green light. If the green light is on, I think you're on.
Okay, there it's on. Thank you.
There we go.
Well, thank you, League of Women Voters, for inviting us and letting us have the voters have an opportunity to hear what we are and what we stand for. I've lived in Fargo for the last 50 years in Cass County, and I started out as a teacher. I have a wife, 3 kids, and 12 grandkids. I went into the building business, and I've been building the Fargo and the Cass County tax base for the last 35 years. So with that, I spent 26 years in the North Dakota legislature, and the last 10 as the leader in the House of Representatives. I am a strong fiscal conservative. I believe in the rule of law. I believe in that the best government is a limited government. Regulations should be reasonable, but they also should be understandable, and they should not limit growth. So I like Mr. Pollock, who is also running. We have voting records, and people can look and see what our positions are. I look forward to the opportunity and the challenge of taking my abilities, I believe, as a tax. I was always an expert on taxes as well as on the budget. I'd like to take those skills to the Cass County level, and I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Jim Capitan.
Good evening, and thank you, League of Women Voters, for the invitation. My name is Jim Capitan, and I'm a candidate for District 3 Cass County Commission. I'm a graduate of the North Dakota State School of Science on 2 occasions, NDSU, Industrial College of the Armed Forces, National Defense University, the Air War College, and the Emergency Management Institute. I've been retired from the City of Fargo after 42 years of service, 23 years as a principal appraiser for the Fargo City Assessor's Office, 18 years as the airport manager of Hector International Airport, 1 year as the Director of Human Resources for the City of Fargo. I'm a retired colonel in the United States Air Force and the North Dakota Air National Guard after serving 38 years, 23 years as the officer in charge of disaster preparedness, 10 years as the commander of the security forces, 5 years as the Air Force liaison officer to the state of North Dakota. I was an instructor for Homeland Security after 9/11 for 3 years, and I specialized in the incident command system. I was an independent contractor for the state of North Dakota Department of Emergency Services for 16 years as a state public assistance coordinator during presidential disaster declarations. I served 8 years as a Fargo Park Board Commissioner and president of that board twice. I'm excited about serving Cass County as one of its commissioners, and I will work hard to further the county in its economic development and the FM diversion. I am in full support of the Career Workforce Academy being proposed by the North Dakota State College of Science, and I humbly ask for your vote on June 9th.
Thank you. Ken Pollock.
Hi, my name is Ken Pollock. I'd like to thank Barb and the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, as well as thank the City of Fargo for making the facility available, as well as the staff that they've provided in order to put this on the air. If elected, my biggest priority is to oversee the economic recovery of Cass County from the coronavirus pandemic. Behind that is the need to continue and complete the FM diversion and to manage the growth of property taxes. I'm just an average, hardworking guy. I have a lifetime experiences from which to draw on my public service role. I started farming in 1971 and farmed as a beginning farmer for 5 years. I then started Pollock Champion Auto and operated 7 stores in 4 communities, offering the public both parts and auto service. We had over 100 employees. My stores eventually became O'Reilly's Automotive. After 20 years in Champion Auto stores, I farmed for an additional 3 years and then became a real estate property manager. I continue as a property manager today, operating with self-owned farmland and commercial real estate. I know how increasing property taxes affect me as a homeowner, a business person, and a farmer. I know the challenges of making payroll and meeting the expectations of the public from my time as a retail store owner. I have a heart for the county employees' concerns and the mind of a business person in dealing with human relations issues. I have over 12 years' experience as a county commissioner and 3 years as a water resource district manager. I humbly ask to serve Cass County for another 4-year term. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to questions, and this will start with Jim Capitan. In these unprecedented times, what are the top 1 or 2 issues facing the county commission, and why?
Well, I would say the economic development would be one of them. Business expansion. The county needs to be more involved with the city in approving the tax increment financing and the payment in lieu of taxes, which they call the pilot program, or the TIF, and the tax increment financing is a TIF program, and in the Renaissance zones. City of Fargo in the past has had the kind of the sole approval of these items. Now the legislature came and said that the county has to also adopt it, and the county has been somewhat reluctant, not in all cases, but somewhat reluctant in approving a lot of the pilot programs that have come before them. And that's one of them. The education, the Career Workforce Academy, I think is essential, that it's being proposed.
At minutes fast. Ken Pollock.
Question again, please?
Sure. In these unprecedented times, what are the top 1 or 2 issues facing the county commission, and why?
Well, certainly the biggest issue facing the county commission right now is the explosion of coronavirus cases in Cass County. And this is very troubling to me, and I see we added another 50-some cases today. I think in the last week we've added nearly 300 cases. And so that really concerns me. We discussed this at our county commission meeting yesterday, and the county is a member of the task force that is working on this, but the present condition really is concerning, and the economic recovery that we hope is underway, but could be waylaid by the explosion in cases is a real concern. Another issue, like I already mentioned, is the FM diversion. I've been involved with this project since before it was even the diversion, and this is something that we need and something that we're going to get, and and with me on the commission, we're going to get it continued.
Al Carlson?
Well, I agree with some of what was said here. The key thing is to get people back to work. And the county and the city and the state need to be able to come up with some type of guidelines to get people back to work and to get businesses open. Because this economy will not survive. People will not be able to pay their taxes, their real estate taxes, their income taxes, if they're not working. You know, unemployment will run out. The premiums are going to only be higher for those businesses when they come back to work. So the county's role is to be cooperating in this, to create a partnership with the city, with businesses, and make sure that we get these businesses back open. Develop some reasonable guidelines that allow people to get back to work. And that businesses, and for example, we've opened, we didn't open our schools, but we opened our bars and we opened some of our other things. Now, when we're talking ahead and not having opened our schools open in the fall, there's nothing the county can do about that, but it needs to be addressed.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ken Pollock. It can be a challenge to stay updated on what the county commission is doing. How would you help constituents become more aware of what is happening on the county level?
Well, the first thing I would do is remind anyone who's interested that they can attend county commission meetings under normal circumstances. The commission meets the first and third Mondays of every month, and our meeting time starts at 3:30. We usually have various committee meetings that occur starting at 1 o'clock on that day, and it usually runs from 1 till about 5:30. The next thing is we're not right now moving into the audiovisual age due to the coronavirus impact, and all of our meetings are operated virtually, and they're available to view online as well. We are making the move to having more complete audiovisual impact with what happens at the courthouse, but because we're so stingy on the taxes, we're always kind of want for a little bit more equipment than we seem to have on hand.
Al Carlson?
Well, again, I think that what Ken talked about is a good idea. If people want to get engaged, they can find it. The trouble we have is making sure the voters, they feel comfortable with the job that's been done, so they're not running around saying we've got to watch the county commission because they're wasting money, they're not doing the job. So people need to get engaged in this process, and the county needs to make sure that it's accessible. And it needs to be transparent, and it needs to be accountable. And with that, I think that by having it available on video, having it available on live streaming, those type of things are good. And then making sure people know exactly what they're doing, and make it simple, make it understandable, and get those people to want to watch what's happening in their county.
And now Jim Capitan?
Well, one of the things that a lot of people are not able to come to the county meetings because of the time it's being held. You know, the working people, unless they take leave of absence from work, farming people. So my intention would be to go out and visit the county. You're not just the county commissioner from one certain district. To go to every one of those, not maybe everyone, but a lot of them. And of the 50-some townships, you could go visit with them, because I don't think, you talk to the township supervisors, I don't think any of them, I don't think a sitting county commissioner's been to a township meeting.
Thank you. Next question, we're back to coronavirus and COVID ID. And we'll start with Al Carlson. If COVID-19 affects county revenues, where would you consider making cuts in expenditures?
You know, when I was involved in the state, we always had an allotment process, and in some cases that's very fair, and in other cases it's not, because some areas require money that you just can't take away from them. Social services being one of the areas that gets hurt the most. So I think you have to take that budget and look at the potential revenue, what's not going to be collected, what you're not going to get in state sales tax revenue is down. They might not get as much sales tax revenue. And then you have to go through that line by line and decide which would be the areas where you can make those cuts. Because you have to call them reductions to the budget, because hopefully this passes, the revenues return to normal, and we can do business as normal. But it is one of those things where you have to go line by line, issue by issue. You have to protect public safety, and you have to protect the health system that the county is involved in.
Thank you. Jim Capitan?
Well, I agree with just about everything that Al has said, but the one area is you really can't cut a whole lot on would be the county highway department and the sheriff's department. You have to have security in your county, and you have to have good roads. You have to have good farm-to-market roads. If you don't have a budget to do that, you're just adding on to the problems. But outside of that, I agree with Al that you have to go on a line by line and see where your cuts can be made and make them hopefully just temporarily until your economy comes back.
Thank you. Ken Pollock?
Well, I've had to do this on several occasions, having served as a commissioner for 3 terms. And one of the things that you do when you don't have enough money is you limit some of the planned purchases. So maybe instead of buying 12 new patrol cars, maybe you buy 9. Maybe instead of paving 80 miles of road, maybe you do 50 miles of road. You limit the hiring of new employees. And you have to have the attitude that there are cuts available. The simple fact is I think that we have enough revenue in Cass County to manage most of the things that come forward. It's just really a matter of how we prioritize and spend the money.
Thank you. We have another COVID-19 question. During the pandemic, as a county commissioner, we start with Jim Capitan on this one. During the pandemic, as a county commissioner, who would you look to for guidance on making decisions for county public health and safety?
Well, I'd look to the medical folks. Those are the people who know what's going on. I'd find out who the smartest doctor in the city or the county or the state, and ask those folks how they feel about getting the economy started, or what we can do to safeguard our citizens. That would be the biggest thing, and that's one of the things I don't think we're really doing right now, is relying on our medical profession.
Thank you. Ken Pollock?
Well, during this pandemic, for guidance, the place I look for help is from the governor's office. Our governor has done a remarkable job, informed with all of the sources of information that we have, because we're fighting a pandemic and there's no blueprint for this. And so the medical information is one side of it, and with that we have the coronavirus task force in Cass County, which has Fargo representatives, county representatives, and Fargo Cass County public health representatives. And I think that they are doing a fine job of keeping us informed of the happenings that are taking place.
Al Carlson?
Well, this is a partnership, and I think the point was well made. It's a partnership between the medical community, it's a partnership between the governor's office, it's a partnership with Cass County Health, with Fargo Public Health, and all these things need to be working together. They need to put their arms around this and say, we're going to fight this with a united front, we're going to pool our resources, and those are the people we have to rely on, because they'll have medical experts, they'll have emergency disaster experts. All those people will be sitting at the table, and I think some of the meetings that have already taken place were probably nothing more than eye-opening. And I talked to a friend from Bismarck today, and the first thing he says, I hope you're isolating, because Cass County's ground central for North Dakota. And when we had 50-some new cases today, I believe. So we need to make sure we're on top of this and make sure that all these groups are meeting together, working together, and using a common message to the people.
Thank you. Another question, and we'll start with Ken Pollock this time. In December, the Cass County Commission voted unanimously to allow Lutheran Social Services to continue resettling refugees in Cass County. What are your thoughts on this vote, and how would you have, or in your case, Ken, how did you vote on that issue?
Since it's a unanimous vote, I guess we know that I voted in favor of it. And I went into the meeting thinking that if we could limit the number of refugees that we received this year to the number that we had last year, that would be fair. And what Lutheran Social Services proposed was actually less than that. So what I was looking for, I got out of it. The problem that we have is our social system gets overwhelmed by the large numbers of refugees that are brought in. And if we have 400 or 500 coming in, that's just more than we can physically handle, and that really presents a challenge. And so that's why I said, well, I'll be happy if you bring in what you brought in last year, which came true.
Al Carlson?
Well, I think that if you followed the media, that was really a hot button. With some people, they were bound, determined not to have any refugees into our community. But being in the construction business, I can tell you a lot of those guys are working in our field today doing a pretty good job. And they may not speak the language real well, but they're hard workers. What we need to do is make sure that we have some control of the number coming in. To say nobody's welcome, then none of us would have been here in this county, because most of our families came as immigrants from somewhere. So we need these refugees to acclimate to our community. We need to make sure that they're working in our communities, and we make sure that there are not so many that we cannot handle the burden that it puts on our health system and our food stamp system and all those things. So the county needs to have some involvement, saying how many are you bringing and how many anticipating bringing, in the city of Fargo.
Jim Capitan?
You know, I'm going to ask you to repeat the question,
Sure.
please.
In December, the Cass County Commission voted unanimously to allow Lutheran Social Services to continue resettling refugees in Cass County. What are your thoughts on this vote, and how would you have voted?
I would have voted in the affirmative. I believe, like both of these gentlemen have said, that if it wasn't for immigrants coming in, none of us would be here. But I agree with Al when he mentioned that we have to know how many are coming and where they're going to live, and what I'd like to even know what their professions are. You know, some of them come here and they're medical doctors from their country, but they're working as a janitor in some school district over here. So I'd like to really know what their professional background or their work background is also, so out in our economy and probably get them a job, or if they don't already have one, find one that is closely aligned with what they have done in the past.
Thank you. A new question. We start again with Al Carlson. What is your view on the FM diversion project and the county commission's role in that project? The person then says, it has been hard for the public to follow the news about the FM diversion. How would you help the public stay informed?
And I will agree that I think it's been difficult to keep up to date with it because of the changing plans, the changing costs. When I was in the legislature, Senator Grinberg, who is now the city commissioner, and I and Senator Fish, who's no longer with us, played an important part in getting the first money that would be set aside, $450 million for diversion. In addition to that, the wall that you see outside of here was when I introduced something in the legislature that said we need to have $120 million for interior flood protection for the city of Fargo. So I've been a proponent of making sure defending our city. Since 1969, when they came and got us in the middle of the night out of our dormitories at NDSU, and we were throwing sandbags in somebody's house I didn't even know, I've been involved in making sure of the flood. When we hit it in 97 and all my houses that were out in the area south and west of Fargo were flooded, I saw firsthand the damage that flooding does. So I'm a proponent. I'm concerned about the cost.
Okay. Jim Capitan?
Well, I am a proponent of the FM diversion, and I agree that a lot of people are not aware of where it stands today, even though they are making progress. It's too slow, in my opinion. But again, because of the changing of everything, counties south of us are putting hamstrings on the diversion and on the Minnesota side that makes things go a lot slower than it should be. So, but I'd be a 100% proponent of it, and to help find some way of getting this thing sped up so it can get accomplished.
Ken Pollock?
I've been a proponent of the diversion since it was the Southside Flood Protection Plan for Fargo. In 1997, after we were inundated, in 2009, after we were inundated, I actually took the Army Corps of Engineers around in my pickup and showed them the areas outside of the city of Fargo that had the damage. And from that is how we landed with the project that really is as grand as it is and protects the entire community. If you want to know what's going on in the FM diversion, all you need to do is look at fmdiversion.com. And probably the easiest way to get informed is to click on the flyover of the diversion, and you will see a simulated flight over the tieback channel that begins by Comstock and all the way through South Fargo and around West Fargo and all the way north to Argusville, and you will have a very good understanding of how immense this project is. One of the reasons it's important is because it relieves the homeowners from having to buy expensive flood insurance, and the cost of flood insurance will be greater than the cost of this diversion.
Thank you. New question starting with Mr. Capitan. Another diversion question. As the FM diversion moves forward, there are more flood buyouts and there is land standing empty. Would you support this land being used for urban agriculture, such as community gardens, small farms, or pollinator gardens?
I'd have to study that, but right offhand, yes, I'd say it would. I would support that. Part of the problem is on the buyouts, the hang-up that I have there is we're buying out people, in some cases, a home that's worth $250 or maybe up to $500,000 and paying them $2 million for it. That's absolutely ridiculous. And we built a golf course, a private golf course with public money. I would have been against that, but that's in the past. But I would look at using vacant land for what do you call it, hobby farms or gardens, that type of thing. Yes, if it's going to sit idle, you make some use out of it.
Ken Pollock?
Well, there is an opportunity for some sort of community garden. The Diversion Authority hasn't been approached on that, nor has the joint board of the Water Resource District, which is the one who handles all of the land purchases and the land management. So I wouldn't rule it out. I sit on the FM Food Committee, or rather the Cass Clay Food Committee, and this is a topic that is mostly concentrated with needs inside of the city. If there are needs outside of the city into the county areas, it's sure something that we would consider. If I had property in the path of the diversion and you wanted it and I didn't want to sell it, I think that I should be compensated just as fairly as I could possibly be. And the federal government sets a standard on how those reimbursements go. And their formula is generous to the homeowner and to the landowner. And I would much rather be generous to the public when we need their property for a public purpose than to make them feel that they're cheated out of it.
Al Carlson? You want me to read it?
No, I'm sure there's many good uses for the land once it's completed and the land is idle, you know, and I'm sure that there's proper people within government regulation that can decide what those good uses would be. I just want to go back on the diversion, as long as this keeps coming up as a question. I think all of us up here support flood protection for Cass County and Fargo, and it isn't just for Fargo, it's for Argusville, it's for all the towns surrounding Fargo. Flood protection is a big deal for the whole county. And there's part of it, people that see it as a diversion, and there's some of the people that see it as a dam. So there's going to be disputes, there's going to be arguments, but I'm very supportive until they start to run short of money and have to put it on the special assessments of the taxpayer. because that will kill economic growth and the growth of housing and the growth of economic development in Cass County. So we need to get this financial model done. I believe the state needs to come up with some extra dollars, and so does the federal government.
Thank you. We now switch to a question on the Career Workforce Academy. We start with Mr. Pollock. The Cass County Commission has the opportunity to financially partner with a Career Workforce Academy, which would give area students in the opportunity to train in technical fields. Would you support this initiative, and what do you see this partnership providing Cass County? And I'll tell you right now, I've got another question about that from what you all did last night, so.
All right. Right now, there is one mill sitting in our budget that's designated for the Career Workforce Academy. I was pushing to get a countywide vote on this upcoming June election to approve a bond issue for 15 years in order to pay for the facility that's needed. So I sit on the task force that is bringing the Career Workforce Academy forward. Right now, we're considering alternative plans and looking at some other funding opportunities. So we don't really know what the county's obligation is going to be, but it's something that's needed for the community. We're doing this under the guise of economic development, but it really is to help business and industry have more workers and more trained workers. And what it really does is it addresses the need that exists in North Dakota to get away from a 4-year college education and onto a trade and technical education that takes a year or maybe 18 months, and the students graduate with no debt.
Thank you. Al Carlson.
You know, it's pretty hard coming from a company that works with the trades to say you don't need more tradespeople. And we do need more tradespeople, and we need more people that are career-oriented in the trades. I believe that the one mill that was approved by the county raises about $1 million, 900 and some $1,000. And they wanted to do, and of course the Career Academy would like to extend that. My understanding was they had asked for another 7 years to pay for that. North Dakotans are very generous when it comes to paying for education, whether it be for K-12, for their career and technical schools, for their colleges. I need to see more cooperation. I think it's a great idea. I think it's long overdue, but there are many avenues that need to be pursued to pull all these people that we're paying for education to train our workforce, to pool their resources, pool their ideas, and get the job done. We've been talking about it forever. It's time to get it done.
Jim Kapanen.
Well, it's kind of a favorite of mine because I happen to sit on the College of Science Foundation Board, Alumni Foundation Board. So I was brought into this when it was first being proposed, and it was actually coming from the president of the North Dakota College of Science that was saying that a lot of industries that have their workers they have a big need for continuing education. They can't send them down to Wahpeton for months at a time when they need them at work, but they can release them from work for 2 or 3 hours a couple of days a week, come and get some training, and then go back to work. And that's where it all started from. And then also we have the 19th Avenue North, where we have, I'm guessing, about 300 high school students that go there and either getting college credit for it, or they are working at something in a trade area that they might like to continue. And that's what the start of it was. So I would be a real proponent of the Workforce Academy.
And the next question we have about that, we'll start with Al Carlson. At yesterday's Cass County Commission meeting, there was a discussion of federal funds from the CARES Act being available for the Career Workforce Academy. Do you think the county should pursue these federal dollars, and how are coronavirus federal funds applicable to this project?
Well, I would say that the coronavirus dollars are probably not applicable, but there was all kinds of things in that bill that were not applicable to the coronavirus. When those dollars become available, nothing ever is free, but if those dollars are available and we're committed to this project on workforce, I think the application should be made and see where it goes. Because it's one of those things that's expensive. It's gonna require some buildings. There's a lot of people who say, we have enough buildings right now in higher education, why do we need some more? So there's both sides to this story, but there is only one side to the fact that we are short on technically trained individuals for our workforce, and we need to make sure that we combine and pool our efforts and get it done.
Jim Capitan?
Again, I agree with Al's comments on, I think we should pursue the application for the monies. I don't know if it's all coronavirus monies or whatever, but if it's available and if you don't apply for it, you're not gonna get it. So if there's anything that you can apply for on federal dollars, state dollars, or whatever, I think the county should apply for it, or whoever is and has to do that. But it should be applied for, and try and get all the money you possibly can for that.
Ken Pollock?
The Department of Commerce received a grant as part of the coronavirus funding, and they've designated for to their Economic Development Authority. And it's that caveat under which this project qualifies. I'd like to go back to a little bit of the previous question about the need for the Career Workforce Academy. You know, the State Board of Education really has let the taxpayers in North Dakota down, as well as I would say that the presidents have too, because they're so worried about their budgets, and NDSU had 3,000 less students this year, and yet the state can't find enough money or facilities for this project to go ahead. They have to look to the county. Likewise, the legislature had the opportunity to act on this and to get this ball rolling, and again, they deferred. And so it ends up on the county level because we feel it's a pressing county need. But the taxpayers aren't being aptly represented by the Board of Education, the State Board of Ed and the legislature on this matter.
Thank you. I have one more question for you, and then we will go to 1-minute closing statements. And Jim Capitan, you get to start the last question. What do you think is your most unique ability or asset that you will bring to the Cass County Commission if elected?
Well, I kind of stated that in my opening statement, that my years of experience. I think I'm probably have more experience in disasters than anybody that's sitting on the board with all the years that I put in the military on it, and with the state and the city. I guess my first vision for the future, if that's what you're kind of leading up to, I think that a couple of them are that Cass County has like 1,760 some miles of road that have to be improved on, and that need to be taken care of. They got like 600 or over 400 or 500 bridges that are getting older and need to be taken care of. The Sheriff's Department has to patrol 650 miles with less personnel and equipment than a lot of other counties around that are comparable size or smaller.
Thank you. Ken Pollock?
The question again, please?
What do you think is the most unique ability or asset that you will bring to the Cass County Commission if elected, or in your case, re-elected?
So I ask tough questions, and I always probe the people who are making a presentation, and I'm not afraid to really dig in on something. I'm stingy with the tax dollars, and I would say that Cass County is a very well-run county. It's looked to by all the other counties as a leader, and I'm proud to say that I think that we deserve that. And that's all.
Okay, just making sure.
Well,
Al
I wasn't
Carlson.
sure either.
That was a good quick finish. He caught me off guard. I was waiting for more. I was watching the clock. What skills does a politician need, or I would like to call us public servants, not politicians. Our job is to serve the people we work for. We should spend their money as if it was our own, and we should never forget who we work for. Over my years in the legislature, I was known for finding solutions for problems instead of just identifying problems. And I think that's a key ingredient for a county commissioner. Not only to talk about what the problem is, but to find the solution for the problem. You know, I think I'm a good organizer, I think I'm a good communicator, and I think those skills, I'm a budget balancer as well, and I think those are skills that lend itself well to a budget that's become very large in a county like Cass County. And again, never forget who you work for. You know, never forget whose money you're spending, and be organized, be thoughtful, be transparent, and I think I have those skills for the job.
And now for the candidates' 1-minute closing statements, and we start with Ken Pollock.
I respect the taxpayer. I know that the most important job that the county commission has is the preparation of the budget, because the budget is the blueprint that we follow as we plan the spending for the year. I believe that there's enough money in Cass County with the increase in valuations that we should be able to leave the tax rate alone and not raise the mill levy. The county works well with all of our partners with the city, partners with the state, partner with the Association of Counties, and partners with all of the other counties. If I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, you know that I'll make every meeting and that I'll pay attention, I'll do my homework, and I ask for the opportunity to serve for 4 more years. Thank you.
Al Carlson.
Well, thank you very much again for hosting us. It's always one. I spend a lot of time in the private sector as a contractor, and I've also spent a lot of time in Bismarck working with the governor, working with the Supreme Court, working with all the people that the agencies are there, and I think those relationships are going to be very valuable as we go forward if I was to be a Cass County Commissioner. Because it's always a top-down thing. Many of the programs that flow through the county start at the state level. And you need to be able to communicate those people what your needs are and then get those things handled. So I would really appreciate the opportunity to bring those skills, the skills that I described before, to the Cass County Commission, and to make this a place where people want to live, work, and raise their families.
Jim Capitan.
Well, first of all, I'm not a politician. I did serve 8 years as a commissioner of the Fargo Park Board, but I did run the airport for 18 years, and I had a sizable budget that we had to get approved every year for the 18 years. So basically, just as a person I belong to just about every organization imaginable, and I've been a president or chairman of just about every one of them. I think that shows that I'm kind of already a proven leader, and when it comes down to this, I'm being endorsed by Bruce Furnace, who's a former mayor of the city of Fargo, Sandy Beeler, who is the past National Republican Committee woman for North Dakota, Arlen Rasmussen, who is just a past Cass County Commissioner and former West Fargo Police Chief, and Paul Laney, who is a past.
Go ahead, finish.
No, I'd say I think I've got the experience to be a good commissioner, and I humbly ask for the vote on June 9th.
I want to thank all of the candidates for running for this office. When we get an audience, this is my chance to have people applaud you. So consider this my applauding of you. A few of the people here. I want to thank the City of Fargo for the use of the City Commission Chamber, for the videographer working for us. Thanks to all the league members who helped organize this and came here tonight to volunteer. Thanks for all of the people who submitted questions. They were very, very good questions. Thanks to City of Fargo for putting it up on their website, and we will have Sparklight and Midco keeping it on the public access channels hopefully for a while. We will have it on our website, lwvrrv.com, and hopefully on our YouTube channel, so you should be able to find this again. And we will be back here Thursday starting at 6, we have to split up the numerous school board candidates into 2 separate forums, and then we will also have a forum with the Fargo Park Board members. Thank you, everyone, and good night.